No one has bothered to make a YouTube compilation on Joao Felix's second Chelsea spell. The first line of an article written about the man from The Athletic. And yet, despite this, Chelsea have managed to offload the player for an initial £26 million, but that figure could reach as high as £43 million, depending on undisclosed add-ons. That number is significant, because the man has done absolutely nothing but tank his value since signing for Chelsea for roughly the same amount, only 1 year prior. This is madness. Now, Felix is going to Saudi Arabia, and the Pro League project there isn't exactly well known for frugality. But that shouldn't distract you from the fact that this is the most Chelsea deal ever, only rivaled by Noni Madueke going to Arsenal for 50 million plus. These deals, they come from the same wheelhouse. Now Chelsea are still heavy spenders themselves, having spent about 240 million plus, but they've recovered over half of that, with many more sales looking to be on the way. They will very likely cross the 200 million pound mark on just departures alone. Not bad for blue billion-pound bottle jobs, eh Gary? The current world champions deserve some praise. How do they keep doing this?
Today I feel
like talking about Chelsea. Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome back. Chelsea are an interesting club. They're masters of subverting expectations, of making you feel as though things aren't going their way, and then to turn around only a couple months later being like, oh, well, maybe I was wrong. I've been saying this quite often recently, as a lot of you guys know. Creative accounting is also another thing that they're very good at. They sell their own hotels and other assets to themselves and their sister companies, assumingly to help with PSR and other financial regulations. Last year, they sold the women's team to the parent company Blueco for roughly £200 million, netting a very large amount of that as profit. The ownership of Chelsea Football Club has changed over the last 20 years, but the ethos of this club, it remains the same. You know, this is ancient history at this point, and I think a lot of people may have forgotten this, but financial fair play was a regulation that came into place because of Chelsea. Now, by the way, don't get me wrong, I'm more in the camp right now that doesn't really blame them that much for what they did, because they just did what a lot of other clubs would have done if they had either thought of it first or had the money. And ever since the regulations have come into play, they're still finding creative ways to get around and do all these loopholes. So fair play to them, honestly. And even despite that, if you don't want to give Chelsea credit for continually innovating when it comes to their accounting, what you have to give them credit for is their track record for being able to offload players that all of us know they do not want. And this is something that everybody knows usually weakens the negotiating power of a club. If everyone knows they don't want to keep that player and everyone knows that player wants to leave or go to a specific club, it makes it really easy for the buying club to just wait it out, because something will be bound to happen. But with Chelsea, this just doesn't seem to be the case at all. They've had an unbelievable window so far. To give you a bit of context, at the time of recording this video, Liverpool have spent the most in the window, roughly about £250 million so far. Chelsea are not that far behind them, about 240, but they've recovered over half of that amount. Again, according to The Athletic, Chelsea are expecting another 100 to 150 million in player sales before the end of the window, which seems quite far-fetched on first glance. You really think they're going to be able to offload, up to 300 million pounds in player sales? Unlikely, right? And then you look at their inventory and you realize that maybe that's not as far-fetched as you thought. Nicholas Jackson, Armando Broja, Leslie Ugochukwu, Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, Carney Chukwuemeka, Axel Disasi, Renato Vega, Christopher Nkunku, and then we have Raheem Sterling, who is the highest paid player at the club, I believe. His initial contract, I'm not sure what it is now after all these years, seems to reportedly be within the £325,000 per week range or so, and I think he also got that contract before the current wage structure came into place. So he may be getting the bag, but he's been sitting on the bench for ages. He was on loan at Arsenal, and it's the weirdest situation because, I just checked now and I can't believe it. He's still only 30 years old. It's one of the strangest cases. I guess that's what happens when you debut at 16. So Chelsea may not end up getting all that much money for him in the end, at least if things keep going the way they are right now, unless, a crazy team or league comes in for him, Saudi Arabia, Turkey maybe, they're doing crazy things. But on the bright side for Chelsea, it does seem like he's the only player in the situation like that. Everyone else is a really highly valued asset. Case in point, as I've said, Joao Felix. With his recent move to Al Nassr to join up with Cristiano Ronaldo, Joao Felix became the 4th most expensive player in history based on combined transfer fees, 225 million euros. And good for him, he's knocked Alvaro Morata out of the top 5, both of them, interestingly enough, coming from the is this money laundering or not camp? For legal reasons. That was a joke. Although the Felix situation, in my mind at least, is a lot more egregious than the Morata one. Morata, you know, for all the terrible things that people say about him, he actually seems to try. He actually seems to give a crap. He was made the captain of Spain. He won the Euros as the captain of Spain, and he's matured. He just seems to get really nervous all the time. He doesn't know how to deal with the spotlight. All of that other stuff. Felix, however, is extremely, supremely talented, but he doesn't seem to put in that much effort. This dude is going to provide his family with generational wealth thanks to 1 season in Portugal. It's very impressive. It's great work if you can get it. And Chelsea have just gone ahead and washed their hands dry of him, completely unscathed, even though he only played 12 games for them in the 24-25 year and went on loan to AC Milan in January. It's a superpower. I'm jealous. And something worth noting is that it is at times like this when you take a look at all the mega contracts that Chelsea have been handing out and realize that it's a pretty good idea. All the players just retain their value. Joao Felix was on contract until 2031. Chelsea are once again a major player and a clear threat to world football. I really struggle to think of another club in world football that can so consistently and frequently yo-yo from being at the very top to being mid-range, to being at the very top again, just within the space of a year, 2 years. Bowley, Igbali, all the people behind the ownership, they deserve their memes, but they deserve praise too. A Conference League, a Club World Cup, and a massive check to come with it, and a 4th place finish, all within a year where everybody started off clowning them for how big their squad was, how silly their spending was, a whole bunch of other things. And not to mention that also came in a season where they were pretty much the only club that was putting pressure on Liverpool at some really, really crucial stages of the year. And what this all comes down to, this entire video, my rambling and all that, is that the club is pretty much on track to either matching that or going beyond. Their signings have been immaculate. They've replaced some of their outgoing wingers in Jadon Sancho and Noni Madueke with Jamie Gittins and Estevao. Both of them are on the younger side, 18 and 20 years old, so maybe don't expect too much from them yet, but both of them are very, very highly rated, and even though I'm saying don't expect too much from them, expect them to play quite a lot of football, because they have been doing it at high levels. Gittins was one of the only good things at Dortmund last year for very large periods. Estevao is only 18, but was named the best player in the Campeonato Brasileiro in 2024. For a lot of people, this one is actually the most underrated signing that Chelsea have made in a really, really long time. Only 29 million euros for a player that was the best player in all of Brazil at 17. Now that's a deal. This is a bit of a side note, but I think it's relevant because it does apply to Chelsea's situation and ongoing situations. I've always thought that Chelsea are just ruthless ambition exemplified. And I think a lot of you guys will agree with me. They always want better players or to be in a better situation when perhaps they don't really need to replace certain players. Like for example, maybe I'm alone in thinking this, but I don't think that they needed to replace Noni Madueke. I think he's a good player. And Arsenal fans, even though they didn't like the signing because of the price tag, they'll come to find out that. I don't know if they really needed to go in and get these 2 new, young guys, right? But they just want the players that hold the value more and potentially have a higher ceiling. And they've always been like this. For example, Chelsea had Didier Drogba, but they still went ahead and got Andriy Shevchenko. They wanted Wayne Rooney too. They pursued him, quite longingly. They had Frank Lampard, but they still really wanted to get Steven Gerrard. And Chelsea will always be like this. It's why they're able to yo-yo so high and so low, because of how ruthless they are. And I guarantee you, any players that are in this team right now, they may perform, but none of them are safe. Anyway, that's a bit too much doom and gloom. Moving on, Joao Pedro and Liam Delap. We've already seen them in action in the Club World Cup. I'm a really big fan of Liam Delap. He did well at Ipswich, and I was pretty excited at the prospect of him coming to Manchester United, but for the sake of his own career and his mental well-being, he probably made the right call. He has great technique, is a really shoot-from-the-hip kind of striker. I remember in the Club World Cup final, he took a shot that really forced the best out of Gianluigi Donnarumma, and the technique in that shot, the run-up, the strike, everything. Beautiful. Joao Pedro scored the goal that really buried PSG in that match. And just like that, Chelsea have 4 really high quality attackers that have all come into the squad in about a month and a half, 2 months. Add Cole Palmer to that, and we're looking at some real trouble. The latest signing is Gerald Hato from Ajax. He's a natural left back, meaning that Cucurella finally has some real cover. Trevor Chalobah has been immaculate since being yanked back from Palace. My only concern if I were a Chelsea fan would be Robert Sanchez at goalkeeper. I know he had a good Club World Cup. I know he was named the best goalkeeper of the tournaments, but I still don't rate him. I just don't. And if Chelsea really have title aspirations, I don't know if they're going to be able to get there with him. Despite this, Chelsea's depth is monstrous. Cucurella is brilliant, but most people would rather talk about his hair than his footballing abilities. Cole Palmer is just getting better with time. He's the sort of player that makes neutrals and people who don't usually watch football support Chelsea or watch the game. He's a brilliant asset for Chelsea to have, not just because he's a great player. Caicedo is also getting better and better as the days go on, to the point where, in my opinion, he's one of the best CDMs in world football right now. Quietly, he's become that. And not a lot of people would agree with that just because of his price tag. And I understand that. Enzo Fernandez might have some screws loose, but he is also exceptional. Maresca has a young, deep, supremely talented side on his hands. I again referenced the Club World Cup, where his game plan and tactical tweaks of specifically targeting PSG's weaknesses showed his adaptability. The question now is if this team can really gel together long term, if they can go above what they did last year, whatever that looks like. We're looking at a really dangerous side. The transfer window still isn't over yet. There's talk of getting in additional wingers and midfielders. Xavi Simons, Alejandro Garnacho, Morgan Rogers have all been mentioned. So they could look even more scary as time goes on. But until then, we just have to watch this space. And there we have it. Let me know what you guys think about Chelsea, their prospects going into the new season. That's all for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.